What is up, guys? So I've been getting this question a lot. I want a gaming phone, but I want, an older flagship that's going to be cheap. So all of these phones are relatively cheap, and you can do pretty much a game on high settings: Call of Duty, Fortnite, Fortnite. PUBG. So I want to start off with the LG V50. Very cheap right now. You can find the V50 for around 300 bucks, and it's still a great phone. One of my favorites on the list. And it's got an aluminum frame, it's got a glass back, it's IP68 dust and water resistant. Also has a POLED display at 6.4 inches. It's a 1440p display, so extremely sharp display, which you want for gaming. It's 538 for the PPI. Beautiful OLED panel here. We also have Android 10 on here, Snapdragon 855, Adreno 640. Like I said, this phone, I have full gaming tests on all these phones. Go check out those gaming tests individually if you want to actually see, all of the scores in depth and all that stuff, the settings. So you do have micro SD support, 128 gigs of internal storage, and 6 gigs of RAM. You also have stereo speakers, which sound pretty good. They're great for gaming. And also what's really good for gaming is having a quad DAC. So this phone has a headphone jack with a quad DAC, so you get some very high quality audio if you have the headphones to match. So you do have NFC on board, physical fingerprint scanner, a pretty nice size battery, 4,000 milliamp battery, 18-watt charging. You also have wireless charging. And to top it off, you still have excellent cameras on the V50, a 12 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel telephoto, and a 16 megapixel ultra wide, shoots in 4K with an 8 megapixel selfie, and then in a wide lens, so if you want to take group photos, and that shoots in 1080p. So overall, this is an excellent device. It does very good. It has 5G as well if you get the Verizon version. And yeah, super solid. Now the OnePlus 7 Pro is still one of my favorite phones this year. I'm still using it as a daily driver. I have not upgraded. So you have a premium design, of course, aluminum frame, glass back on here. You actually have a fluid AMOLED 90Hz display, HDR10 Plus. It's a beautiful display with no compromises. You have a full screen, no notch, no punch hole. I use the pop-up camera mechanism. It has a curved display, but honestly, you get used to it after a while. It's 1440p, 516 for the PPI. Again, another beautiful display on here. I think the highlight is still Oxygen OS on these OnePlus phones. I still think they're just buttery smooth. Excellent blend of customizing and also just simplicity. Snapdragon 855, Adreno 640. No SD card support on the 7 Pro. And also you can upgrade to the 256 version, and you can get the 7T Pro with a slightly faster chipset as well. I would do that. I wouldn't get the 128 gig. I have it and I ran out of storage. So you do have on here 128 gigs or 256, 6 gigs or 8 gigs of RAM. Stereo speakers on here sound awesome. This phone also does not have a headphone jack, so note that. You also have NFC on board, a fingerprint scanner under the display, extremely fast, works great. 4,000 milliamp battery, 30-watt charging. I easily can get through a full day on the 7 Pro, no problem. Starting with a full charge. So that is good. Cameras are still pretty good on here. Not the best on the list, but definitely good for your casual shooter. 48 megapixel standard, 8 megapixel telephoto, and then a 16 megapixel ultra wide. You also have 4K video with a pop-up selfie cam at 16 megapixels that shoots in 1080p. Alright, so next would be the Pixel 4, which is really cheap right now. You can find these for under, well, not under, but around $250. This phone to me has one of the best cameras on the list. So if you're looking for, like, you want to do some gaming but you also want to take excellent photos, this would be the phone that you would get. So you do have an aluminum frame, glass back on here, IP68 dust and water resistant, a POLED 90Hz display at 5.7 inches, also pretty compact for 2021. So if you have small hands, this will be a good fit for you. 1080p, 444 for the PPI. Overall, very nice panel. Also, another benefit is you get the latest version of Android, as soon as it comes out on the Pixel. So you'll have Android 11, Android 12, 13. It'll come first to the Pixel. So Snapdragon 855, Adreno 640. Also no SD card support, unfortunately. I would go for the 128 gig version, 6 gigs of RAM. You also have stereo speakers on here, which sound actually very good. No 3.5mm jack, so I think the only phones on here are the V50 and the S10e, which we'll talk about, and the G8, but Yeah, so no headphone jack on here. NFC is on board. You have extremely good Face ID on here. So the face unlock works really great. So there's no other option though, no fingerprint scanner, unfortunately. But you do have that on here. 2,800 milliamp battery, 18-watt charging along with wireless charging. Battery life is okay. It's not it's not the best on this list, but it is decent. You do have a 12.2 megapixel lens with a 16 megapixel telephoto, so no ultra wide, but overall for anybody that's just trying to take like actual still photos, this phone is going to kill it in daylight and low light. Still going to take excellent flagship quality photos and great selfies as well. Overall, just amazing cameras, so I still think this is the best camera on the list. And next we have the Galaxy S10e. So the S10e is probably my overall favorite, but I wouldn't say the best on the list because some people like the small phones, some people don't like small phones. I like small phones. You do have an aluminum frame on here, IP68 dust and water resistant, a beautiful 5.8 inch 1080p dynamic AMOLED display, HDR10 plus, 438 for the PPI. It's a very good display, has the punch hole, beautiful colors on here as well. Android 11 is on board with the Snapdragon 855 and Adreno 640. This one actually has micro SD support and 128 gigs of storage and 6 gigs of RAM. You also have stereo speakers. A headphone jack is on board with this one. NFC is on board. Samsung desktop support is on board. The physical fingerprint scanner is built into the side of the phone. I absolutely love this phone. It has everything you would really want. The only compromise is it's small, so it has a smaller battery, but also that battery is not terrible. It's a 3,100 milliamp battery, 15-watt charging, wireless charging, as well as reverse wireless charging as well, which is pretty cool. So battery life is okay, but definitely it's not. I wouldn't consider it an all-day phone, but it definitely is not terrible. So you do have on here still very good cameras, a 12 megapixel standard, 16 megapixel ultra wide, 4K video, 10 megapixel selfie that also shoots in 4K. So excellent cameras on the S10e for sure. And last would be the LG G8. This is the smaller version of the V50 minus the 5G. Everything else is pretty much the same on the G8 and also minus a camera. So you still have the same design, aluminum frame, glass back, just slightly smaller, IP68 dust and water resistant. Beautiful POLED display at 6.1 inches. It's still a 1440p display, 564 for the PPI. Beautiful display. Android 10 on here is upgradable to Android 11. Snapdragon 855 and Adreno 640 on here. Plays games. All of these phones, like I said, will play games great. So you do have micro SD support, 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM. You also have the quad DAC on here with the headphone jack, and you also have technically stereo speakers. Not the best from LG, but definitely you do have them. So you do have NFC on board, a very good Face ID as well, so that is really nice. And you have a physical fingerprint scanner as well on here. So you do have a 3,500 milliamp battery, 21-watt charging with wireless charging. This phone definitely has excellent battery life, all day battery life for sure. And you have a 12 megapixel standard and a 16 megapixel ultra wide, 4K video, and an 8 megapixel selfie that shoots in 1080p. This phone takes beautiful photos, so you really aren't missing out. So all of these phones really are excellent picks. You really can't go wrong. You just have to pick and choose from the pros and cons and which one that you want. So what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I will catch you guys in the next one.